Welcome to A Tale of Two Scribes. I'm your host, Eric P. Bishop. This is a podcast where interesting people come and tell about the stories they've crafted. As for myself, I'm an author. I've created novels, short stories, novellas, and even poetry. If you'd like to find out more about what I've done, please go to my website, ericpbishop.com. Thanks, and enjoy the journey. Welcome to another episode of A Tale of Two Scribes. So tonight, I'm excited to have my friend Donnie J on the program. Hey, Donnie.
Hey Eric, how are you?
Good. We've actually got to meet once too, which is a lot of times I'll bring people on the program, just authors I admire or people whose works I'm interested in. And it's almost the exception to the rule to get to meet someone nowadays.
Yeah, yep.
So pretty wild. And I've not been going the one of the chief ways to normally meet people is typically going to conferences, and I've not gone. I've not gone in 2 years, I guess, somewhere around that. So it's
hmm
it's it's been a minute. I'm gonna try to possibly go to one or two next year, but they seem to always interfere with my 9 to 5 job. So they're normally around the the first week of the month, which is accounting close, which is how I make my living. Or it seems to interfere with like time with my kids, and so those are two things that are kind of non-starters. So
hmm
conferences hasn't happened in a couple of years.
Yep.
So.
I know how it is. Yep.
But before we dive into writing, I want to talk about not just Murder by Half, but I want to talk about your other books that you've written. Um, we're filming this on Veterans Day. It's going to come out probably in about a week after Veterans Day, but we're filming on Veterans Day, so I thought maybe it would be appropriate to spend a few minutes kind of just talking ourselves, what Veterans Day means to us, and if we've got any kind of direct connection of why it has that special meaning. Talk about it for a few minutes. So,
Sure. Yeah. I've had family that in the military, both sides of the family. So hopefully readers would be able to pick up on the fact that with my books, there's like a thread of patriotism.
mhm.
Not it doesn't necessarily always have to have a military component to it, but it's just one of the things that makes me who I am. I'm just like deeply patriotic. Um, those guys, veterans, I can't give them enough thanks for what they've done for me and my family and obviously our country. It's kind of special to do the podcast here today on Veterans Day. So
It
yeah,
is.
I can't express enough gratitude to those who have served. So thank you to all those who have served.
Yeah, and we have a big representation in the writing community for veterans, which, and I know you're buddies with some of those guys, and they've
Mhm.
been super instrumental for you of supporting your books. And since was 2015 or 16 your first novel came out?
I believe it was 2015 is
15.
when the first one came
Okay.
out. Yeah, but
So
yeah,
yeah.
Andrews and Wilson, those guys are like can't say enough good things about those guys. Obviously, they're super writers, but just super guys as well, and both veterans and other veterans too. Author friends I have. Just like I said, can't say enough good things about those guys.
Yeah.
So
Um, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Jason Piccolo.
I am.
You know Jason. Okay, so
Yep.
Jason was just out. I just was texting him here a few minutes ago. He was out with Brian Andrews and Brian's family, teaching them firearm safety and shooting. He was
Oh,
just out there. So, yeah, I texted him something. I hadn't texted him in a couple of weeks, so I texted something today, and he didn't respond, and which is, totally normal. So, but I connected with him on Instagram, and so we were going back and forth on Instagram, and I was like, "Did you not get my text earlier today?" He's like, "No." I was just like, I looked at my phone. I'm like, "I texted you." He goes, "You got my new number?" I said, well, apparently I didn't rate getting the new number. So then we started texting on the new number. So, but super great guy. Again, the community that we're part of is pretty special. So same thing for myself, similar to you. I did not serve myself. Um, not many people in my family served. We had a couple people in our family serve, but most of my connection with military was through friends,
mm,
friends that are, or and so I've got we mentioned off camera, so I've got Joey Tangway's part of his uniform behind me that I've kept, and Joey gave me that. early 90s is what I'll say. I don't remember exactly what year, but and I sent him a picture of it a while back and he was like, "You've kept that thing?" And I was like, "I have." I said, "I treasure that thing. It stays in the closet with some articles of clothing that are important to me and I don't it doesn't
Mhm.
get I think I've wore it once or twice over the years with the kids like for dressing up or whatever for, kind of playing military or whatever, but
Mhm.
it's something that it's an important thing for me to have and just to remember. So he actually served in the first Gulf War. Um, so the connection there is it was just me and my mom for till I was about 10. She got married when I was 10, and so growing up, she needed a help, support system for
Mhm.
me. And the Tangways were a family from church who just embraced her, embraced me then, and basically treated me like one of their three kids. I was the younger of the three kids at the time until they had their other daughter. And so Joey and his sister Rachel were my big brother and sister. So, since the statute of limitations, you're a detective, you'll know this. Since the statute of limitations, I believe, has expired, Joey was the first person to Chinese water torture me when I was a young man. So that was a fun experience, and I'll get him back one day. I'll get him back. But he served a full career in the army and retired several years back. But spent a lot of his time, deployed, had a bunch of kids, and was gone a lot. And so I think that's the thing that it's hard for people to kind of understand the sacrifice that really the families make. The soldiers, of
Absolutely.
course,
Yeah.
make a sacrifice, and so many of them have given their life. But it's really difficult on the families to,
It's the family. They're sacrificing I mean, maybe not exactly the same way, but um, they're sacrificing in a big way as well.
yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, just military families in general. My heart goes out to those guys. Um, working with a number of those guys, veterans at work as well.
Mhm.
Just you just develop an appreciation for not just them, but the family, and just all the things they've been through
Yeah.
over the years. So yeah, they're special people.
They are. Well, and we're similar age, and we've had this generation. Our generation now has come through in a time where, for years, you didn't have any major conflicts for periods of time. And but our generation, we know lots of guys that they spent. I mean, I know guys that spent their entire 20-year career in active warfare with everything going on in the Middle East. Went in right around the time everything started and have now retired. So they spent a full career. And
Mhm.
the book that's my next book that's coming out is actually dedicated to one of my closest friends who actually served. Um, my kids were a little miffed at me when I said, "Hey, you're not getting the dedication on book number 4," and they were kind of like, "What?" And I said, "Well, Uncle Andrew's getting it," and they took that one. They took it. They took it. "Oh, okay, well, if it's for Uncle Andrew," but
Right.
part of that was because over the years when he'd be out on deployments, and I'd come back and I'd see him, and there'd be year and a half stretches where I wouldn't see him, rarely talk to him, maybe an email here and there, but we would try to get together when he was back stateside, and then he would just have the stories to tell me and show me pictures, and sometimes pictures I'm probably not supposed to see, but kind of this is where I was, this is what was going on, and
Mhm.
yeah, it was just remarkable. So he's been out for a couple of years now, and with this book, um, although none of his stories are in it, the attitudes and the camaraderie and different things that I picked up from conversations with him heavily influenced how my characters react to things and stuff. So
Right. Right.
so it seemed appropriate
Cool.
to give him the dedication. Yeah, absolutely. So I haven't told him yet. So he probably doesn't watch the podcast. So if he, I'll message him when the book comes out or something, or send him a copy. So he's actually not. He's gone now. So now that he's retired, he does contract work. So he is
Mm.
not. He's in Antarctica. That's his official place he goes to for months at
Wow.
a time. So he's gone. It's not really Antarctica, but that's all we were told is.
Right. Right. Right.
So although he'll send me pictures of my challenge coin at places, and I'll be like, that sure doesn't look like any polar bears in the background. I think he lied to me. What do you know? So. But no, special breed of people. We
Yeah.
live in a blessed country, obviously, and not going to get into politics. That's always a bad way to sell books. But we're just coming through an election cycle here, and so many people in the course of history, you don't have peaceful transfers of power. You don't have you have someone that rises up, has an army behind them, and slaughters thousands of people to get power. And we're fortunate we're in a place where currently anything could change, where that's not the case.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's talk. Let's dive into Donnie J, the writer. How did you become Donnie J, the writer? Now that we've been in this business for a little while, we know kind of how crazy it is. So back before you realized how crazy it was, what made you want to go down that path?
Yeah, so I think it was just a combination of things. I've always enjoyed writing. I would guess it started back in high school. I used to write stories and stuff just to kind of get kicks out of the guys. You know, passing a letter across uh, the classroom and then watching somebody read it and then just bust a gut during class was kind of funny. Um, but didn't really seriously consider writing until I started reading like some Vince Flynn,
Hmm.
um, and just there was a Marcus Luttrell book I read particular Flynn book and Marcus Luttrell right around the same time.
Hmm.
Probably it was 2010 or so, and just kind of like got this sense that maybe I can try to write a novel.
Hmm.
So just set out with that goal to not only just write a novel, but write a series, sort of in the same vein, thriller, action, kind of espionage, with a sort of a Vince Flynn, mid-trap type character,
Hmm.
but with a faith element to it.
Right.
So it's kind of how I started.
And what was your process so your first book came out in, I actually have it over here. I think 2015. I made notes. So Warrior Spy came out in 2015. Was there anything that preceded that? Did you start writing short stories, or did you just dive into this is going to be my breakthrough to get into things?
Yeah, pretty much I started out writing, you know, a novel.
Okay.
Um, so it kind of like turned into this, I think it back then it was like maybe a 600-page monster that, I had to whittle down
Yeah.
and turned into somewhere around 400 pages. Um, so I think back then, as anyone starting out and writing, you're naive. You don't really know what the industry is, what the just all the process of making your manuscript into a book.
Hmm.
Um, so I believe I reached out to a number of agents, and one in particular said that this is better suited for the indie world. So
Interesting.
after some kind of consideration for that from that, and some I kind of ran across some people that were in the indie world and
Hmm.
some really good people that sort of took some time to sort of show me the ropes and tell me how, if you want to do it and do it well, these are some steps to take and that type of thing. So
Yeah.
that's sort of how I ended up in the indie world, for the first book anyway.
Do you feel like, I don't know if there's something we've talked about offline or not before, do you feel like possibly because it was geared towards a Christian fiction that some of the agents were put off by that? Or did you go to any agents that, because I know mainstream authors obviously do write Christian
Mm.
fiction, absolutely, but did you try to target certain agents that were looking for that more?
Yeah, 100%. I think,
Okay.
I mean, I didn't specifically um, target any agent um, with the mindset of I've only got to look for one or two agents that accept thrillers. Like I was looking,
Hmm.
like I'm the kind of guy like if I'm going to do something, I want to be the best at it, at least
Yeah.
the best that I can be.
Right.
So I wasn't looking to short string myself with going to some agent that and when I was looking for agents, I would vet them to the point where like I'm looking at their social media. If
Hmm.
they're not active on social media, they're not even, in my mind, they're not worth even considering.
Right.
Um, so I basically went for the big dogs right off the bat.
Hmm.
Um, and then kind of like formulated a list. I forget how many it was the first time around. It was pretty extensive, but
Right.
uh, formulated a list of the people that I thought would be interested in it. And I kind of did the same thing. We can get to that too, but with my Murder by Half crime
Mhm.
thriller, I sort of did the same thing. I think I probably queried more agents for this one, but anyway,
Hmm.
um, yeah, I think 100%. The fact that I don't write Amish fiction, my audience isn't tailored to specifically women. I know they're a big block of the Christian fiction
Hmm.
market, um, but I wanted to write something that I wanted to read.
Yeah.
So I wanted it to be action packed. I wanted it to be, you know, hopefully in the same vein as the those big thrillers in the general market,
Hmm.
but just with a faith element and not something that's like strong that scares off readers of like general market thrillers, but something that does get across that
Hmm.
there's an element of faith in it. So
Yeah, there's a theme in there, and I think that's important. So, yeah, the agent query and going down that because we've talked about that offline. I know in the past over the years because your journey started probably a year or two before mine. I think maybe I forget. I think I first started querying in 15 or 16. I think 15. And very similar to you, what I did was I went and took, who's Brad Thor's agent?
right, exactly.
Who was Vince Flynn represented by? And I just
Yep.
went down the all the big dog list, and that was my
Hmm.
first 30 or so submissions for my first book, and it was just no answer, rejection, rejection, no answer. It was waited 6 months, and then
Right.
I remember one of the people you're talking about social media, and I think I mentioned this in previous podcasts, was one of the agents did get back with me and said, kind of interest. I like the way this book's starting. I don't see you have a website, and where's your social media presence? And I basically replied back. I didn't say it this way, but my general consensus on it was almost like social media is for suckers. Why would I have that? And they were like, I don't know if it was a man or a woman, I don't remember, but it was like when you have 10,000 Twitter followers, contact me again.
Right.
And I was like, and so I did that. So
Right.
over the course of 2016, I believe, I started a Twitter account and I was able to get myself up to the neighborhood of 10,000 Twitter followers. Guess what? Didn't get that agent. So I think they lied to me.
Well, they say social media is not an effective way to market,
I
which is
know.
like, you know, and I get it to a point, but yeah, I definitely think for me I think they and I get it. They make business decisions quickly. They got a ton of people that are coming at them to thinking they're writing the next big thing.
Right.
But yeah, to me it would be great if more agents took the time to even just give you a little bit of feedback.
Yeah.
Not just I don't think this is right for me at this time. Well, like that doesn't help me out. So
Correct.
that was the frustration with the query process is you might have one or two that would give you a little bit of, I don't think this is right for the market or
Hmm.
what have you, but there would be no feedback that you could take and like help you uh fix the manuscript, if you
Yep.
will, or just tweak it here or there. It was just it's not right for me at this time. That's, and the other frustrating thing, I'm sure you dealt with the same thing, was uh, you would find these agents that seem perfect for you, and then they're not taking submissions
Hmm.
until 6 months later, and you're
Right.
like, that type of thing. And so the querying process is definitely frustrating. Um, and I get why they do things the way they do, but it doesn't make it any less frustrating for people
Doesn't.
trying to crack into the industry.
Correct. Yeah. I think the worst one I had was after The Body Man was published. I believe I did hear back from one of the agents I had queried. I think 18 months before. And it was a generic, oh, this doesn't fit with, our catalog, what we're looking for. So, they're just probably never even looked at it or didn't look at very much.
Right,
And it's kind of,
right,
I didn't reply, but I so wanted to reply because I don't believe in burning bridges or nah,
right.
nah, 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 nah. I did want to reply and say, it's already published. So
Yeah.
thanks for getting back with me. But
Uh,
yeah,
I
it's
will say, I
go
was
ahead.
just going to say, I will say that over the years there have been one or two that they don't. I'm not represented by them. Have taken some time off, not necessarily just the email back and forth on the official channel, but like on a social media
Hmm.
message here or there. Um, so there are some great ones out there
Yes.
that while your work might not be a fit for them, they're still like kind enough to reach out and look over a query letter or that
Yep.
type of thing. And so they're out there. I know Gina Panettiere is one.
I was just going to say Gina is probably one you're talking about because that's who I've had great
Yeah,
interaction with over the years,
yeah.
and she didn't sign me. So
And that's why I had to in my Murder by Half book, I had to put her in the acknowledgments just because I thought, she didn't have to uh, give me any help at all.
right.
They're busy. I get that. But yeah, she was just incredibly kind to look over some query letters and just give me
Hmm.
some industry insights. And so, yeah, I had to
Yeah.
give her a shout out.
Yeah, so for those that don't know the querying process very well, that are listening to the program, it's daunting. So it's daunting for the authors, and it's also daunting for the agents because I have definitely interacted with a bunch of them in the last, since 2015 when I first sent my first query. So going on 9 years now, almost 10 years that I've started the querying process, and some of those agents will go off query for 6 months or a period of time. When they come back on, they might get two, three, 400 queries a week. So if you're asking for the first chapter or the first 10 pages of someone's book in a letter, you think of how long it would take you to read 100 of those and to give it, not just read it like, yeah, you can read a page of something in, a very, maybe a quick minute or 1 minute and a half. But if you're actually reading it for content of, am I connecting with this? That does take some effort.
Right.
And so I completely respect the fact that they get inundated, but I also completely respect the fact that as an author, and you spend the time to, target an agent, and you get a standard not interested in this or it doesn't fit, what we're
Mhm.
trying to sell. Yeah, that sucks. And the other side of it too, with for them is, they're getting fit, for anyone that doesn't know how it normally works is, and it's out there. I'm not giving secrets away. An agent typically will get 15% of what you make. And you think, hey, 15%. Yeah, but most authors don't make that much money.
Right.
So even if you had like just use some fake numbers here, but even if you had authors that sold kind of typically, which would be like maybe $10,000 a year in royalties their book makes, that's not atypical. That's probably close to average for authors. So the agent's going to get $1,500 for that. Well, think about it if that's your full-time job. How many authors do you have to have that are selling at
Mhm.
$10,000 in royalty a year for you to earn a living? So it's the whole system is kind of wacky in a way.
Yeah.
It's
It's
very
a
difficult.
it's an antiquated system with especially in the modern world. It's kind of with
Yes,
all of the tools that are out there now, and um, certainly I would say their job is just getting harder
it is getting harder.
because
Yes.
the amount of patience that authors have to keep on querying
Hmm.
is dwindling, especially when I would say, especially when you have a motivated author that maybe has some contacts to kind of like start looking into indie stuff or
Hmm.
the hybrid stuff or whatever, that they can sort of start looking into, hey, there's other ways to go about this. And
Yep.
I'm not getting any younger. I can't query for a year or 18 months
Hmm.
just on and that's another frustrating thing too for any author that is trying to go about the querying process the right way is we research, like I had mentioned before, we research and vet the agents that we're querying,
Hmm.
and when we query, at least you should tailor each query letter to that specific agent in a way that is unique, and it's
Right.
not just from our part, a form letter to them.
Correct.
So, so you're putting time and effort into each query letter on top of the the writing and the editing that you've already done.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, it's just the whole process seems like it's waiting for some sort of breakout um, to adapt in a way that sort of like accommodates both the authors and the agents and the publishing houses.
Yeah.
So there just seems to me, there just seems the paradigm somehow needs to shift in a way that everybody can um, get on the same sheet of music and sort of
Hmm.
like, I don't know what the answer is, but um, I'm sure the publishing houses are feeling it with the indie market that's just sort of
Hmm.
like blowing up as all these new tools and ways to market books and ways to format books and get your books out there to the readers.
Right.
All these indie authors are they're catching on, and there's uh, as you know as well as I do, there are indie authors out there that can make a lot of money um, going direct to the reader.
Yep.
So it's just a matter of, you know, again, just like what I've tried to do is try to go about it the right way.
Hmm.
Um, Still put out as good a product as you can, but just kind of do it on your own.
Yeah.
And
Well, I was gonna say even I'm drawing a blank. Oh, I think it's author's equity. So even like Kyle Mills, someone who was an established author before he stepped into the Vince Flynn series, and then man, I don't know how long he did the Flynn books, 6, 7 years, 8 years maybe.
yeah, I would say, yeah.
It was a chunk. I don't I think I haven't read the last one he did. I think I'd read most of them. But then he decided to leave and then go back to one of the earlier characters he had crafted years ago. Um, and he did not sign with, one of he went with this group called Authors Equity, which is
Mhm.
again kind of more of a hybrid. I know they're working with some of the big publishers, but I think that's where, yeah, the market's going that direction of people
Well,
finding a different way. And someone
yeah,
like him,
mix.
he
Yeah.
can get his foot in the door, you would think, based on the name power of
Mhm.
writing a Vince Flynn book, but at the same time, maybe not,
Yep.
because you're only as good as your last hit for
Yep.
publishing industry.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, I think the changes, and as you're saying that, my mind was kind of wondering of, yeah, I've been trying to crack that code of where they'll go or how they'll find a path forward. And I wonder, and it's something I have not dived into much, and I don't want to in a way, is I wonder if more publishers especially will start utilizing some kind of AI technologies to almost like even cut the agents out of the
Yeah.
equation where they can use AI to target, what they're looking for from
Right.
authors. Um, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
a brave new world.
Yep. Another draw to being an indie is, and I think a lot of the traditionally published authors will maybe sort of agree with this, is when you're an indie, your backlist is, you know, unlimited as far as you don't have to worry about getting the rights back from people and this and that. Your
Right.
backlist is out there, and as long as you keep putting new books out, the backlist doesn't need to be out of print and that type of thing. So,
Hmm.
um, yeah, I just think there's if you're committed, it's a lot of work.
A
And
lot of
you
work.
know this as well as I do, to
Yeah.
be an indie author who's in the game to put out a quality product. It's a lot of work, and
Hmm.
it's not just the writing and polishing your manuscript. There's other things, you got to keep your website up to date. You got to do social media, all those things. In your case, run a podcast. There's all these things that want to do it well.
Yeah.
Uh, take a lot of time and energy.
Yeah.
So, but you can do it. It's just a matter of how determined you are and
Yes.
formulating a network,
Right.
getting to know great people in other aspects of the community. So yeah, just as an encouragement to anybody out there, having difficulty landing an agent, don't give up. It's possible to do things different ways. You just gotta
Hmm.
be a little creative and just get out there and network, start networking with other authors.
Yeah. Well, I think at the end it comes down to you have to kind of figure out what is it you want out of this. And I know some like super talented writers that I've read their books that have agents, and I can think of one in particular that's had an agent for at least 5 years, and they've had zero books come out in 5 years. So at some point, you do have to then say, well, what am I looking to have? Is the feather in the
Right.
cap the agent? Is the feather in the cap a novel? Is the feather in the cap a New York Times bestseller novel? What do you
Right.
want
Yep.
out of this?
Exactly. Yeah.
And then you
Um,
just have to pursue it, whatever it is, and you have to find a way. And if a door closes,
yeah.
guess what? There's another door.
Yeah.
And maybe you got to kick that next door. You know a little bit about this with your 9 to 5. Maybe you got to kick the next door in. But,
Yeah.
find a different path. And then,
Yeah.
you have to be willing to pivot. You have to be willing to say, okay, and I don't have it figured out. What do I have to do
Yeah.
different? So,
Yep. It's like anything in life. If you want to do something well, you just have to be open to learn
right,
and not just be there for people to spoon feed you, but you got to be an active learner. Go out there and learn, gather information for yourself.
right.
Um, read is, and my grandfather used to tell me this, no matter what you want to do in life, go out there and read about it. Find the people that are doing it well. Find the best people in that field.
Hmm.
What are they doing right?
Right.
That's giving them that success. But
Yep.
yeah, it's a lot of work, but you can do it. And I think the big thing for me, and I'm sure you're the same as well, is don't do this for the money. Don't be an author just because you think there's this pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Uh, do it because you have a passion for writing and just want to tell stories. And all that other stuff will take care of itself.
Donnie, are you saying I don't have a Bugatti in my driveway right now? Come on.
I
What's up
haven't been
with
to your
that?
house but yeah, yeah.
I keep it in the backyard under a tarp so people think I'm poor. So,
But yeah, do it because, and I'm sure that all of these, most of the authors we know would say the same thing. Do it
yeah,
because you have, number one, you love to read.
hmm.
That's the big driving thing for me. Like I will always consider myself a reader
A
first.
reader, yeah, absolutely.
Um, but yeah, just do it because you enjoy writing, and then whatever happens is icing on the cake.
Yeah. Well, and I brought this up in other podcasts too, is the big takeaway for me is I tried for so many years to get published, and then, things worked out. I was blessed where, I'm looking at number 4 coming out here in the next several weeks. So there's a snowball effect. And also, even if you stop, even if you get that first book out and you either lose the desire or everybody tells you no and you don't have the money to self-publish or you don't have the money to go to a vanity press or one of these things, hey, you made a big accomplishment by getting a book out because most people that have ever lived in the course of human history and are currently alive even today don't go to the effort of completing a book.
Mhm. Yeah,
So it's a rare thing. Even though millions of books get produced every year, there's billions of people. So you're already in a unique class by just sticking with it. And I might use it as an example to my kids because I tell them, look, and my son's now he's gotten real big into music for years now, but especially this past year, he's gotten big into bluegrass, which, as he knew, is not my favorite kind of music. But if he's interested in it, I'm interested in it.
exactly.
I like the guitar side of it. I don't like the singing of it as much, but I've started to learn that there's a lot of the artists that are really good.
Yeah,
Um, well, what's super interesting is we were almost a year ago now. We were down in Charleston. We have a connection with the band Shinedown, and we were down at the bassist Eric Bass's house. Um, and just kind of he was just gave my son a ton of attention, and they were just playing songs together and looking at. I mean, it was like I just sat back and just watched it
mhm,
as a dad moment, and like this is incredible. Well, in the course of that time we were there, he actually let us hear his new album that's coming out soon that I think
hmm,
like less than a dozen people had heard. So we had just these really amazing things. Well, he said at one point, "Do you mind if I talk to Bruce and give him some advice?" And I was like, "That's why he's here, man. If there's
hmm,
something you say." and I would thought this more than anything, if there's something Eric says that I don't agree with, this Eric doesn't agree with, then I'll just tell him after the fact, know if Bass knows what he's talking about, or I don't agree with that. But no, the advice he gave him for like probably almost an hour, 30 minutes to an hour straight, which is pretty amazing to have advice and that kind of close contact with someone that's
Hmm.
achieved that level of success and stuff. That advice he gave him was amazing. And during the course of it, he brought up the fact of one of his favorite guitarists. And I won't say the guy's name, but he told Bruce who this person was. So that was December of last year, 2023. Fast forward to August of 2024. My son's tutor is that guitarist now. And a God thing kind of happened. Everything kind of worked out. And it's tied through the school he's actually going to. But so he now has that guitarist as his private, 1 week, every week tutor.
Hmm.
That's kind of, helping him work it out. And it was
Well,
just like, and my thought and why I say that to people is not for gloating or anything like that. Why I tell people stuff like that is you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know who you're going to meet and what door that might open for you.
hmm.
But if you're not willing to get up to that door, if you're not willing to grab that
Right.
doorknob and turn it, nothing's
Stick
going to
to
happen.
it. Yeah, just stick to it.
Yeah,
And yeah, and sort of like to your point, like, I would say, and this as well as I do, writing community is just so friendly and everyone wants to help each other. But you got to reach out, and
yeah,
it's almost like the first day of kindergarten. You got to go over there and introduce yourself, and just make friends.
right.
So that's the thing, just getting out there and meeting people, and it is amazing how many people that I never thought would even give me the time of the day reached out or
Hmm.
um, answered a question or that type of thing, or answered a social media,
Right.
private message or something like that. So there's a lot of great people out there, and they're in it for the right reason. They're willing to help.
Yeah.
So yeah, you just gotta stick with it. Find the people that do the hard work.
Hmm.
Do the writing that you aspire to write like, and just go make friends with them. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and tell your story. I think that's the other thing that it's easy to fall into that because we're always looking for that nice new shiny penny.
right,
We're looking, which might be a bad analogy because we're really looking for that success story. We're looking for that Jack Carr. We're looking for that person that literally you have to understand if you get into this industry is the 1% of the 1%.
right,
It happens to people, but sometimes people have that as well. That's their end goal. And it's like you can almost guarantee you're going to be disappointed if that's your end
exactly.
goal.
Yep.
So, what should your end goal be? Obviously, you got to figure that out. But the first thing you have to do, though, is write a story that you believe in.
Hmm.
And maybe you're going to get an agent and editor and they're going to shred that thing. That's okay. You can
Yep.
then at that point decide, do I believe in this, what they're giving me for a response, or do I stick to my guns and what I believe? And that might
Hmm.
mean ending a relationship with an agent, or ending a relationship with a publisher. But you have to figure out what it is you want, and you have to tell your story. And if you're
Right.
trying to tell a story for what you think is going to be marketable, or what you think that the public is going to eat up, you're probably going to fail at that.
Exactly. Yeah. I would say that's what's great about writing books and the artistic creative side of things is, yeah,
Hmm.
there's certain things that you have to, certain rules, if you will, that you have to follow here and there. But um, at the end of the day, do it your way.
Yeah.
If you want to be successful, in my mind, you have to be true to yourself and
Yep.
do it your way. Um, Take advice from people along the way, adapt, maybe if you need to, but do things your way. You only frustrate yourself, like you said, if you're just chasing money that you think is there. If you're
Yeah.
just chasing the money,
Yep.
you're going to be left disappointed and frustrated, and probably, you know, won't won't be in it very long.
Yep.
So yeah, just that's kind of the way I looked at it. Like, and really why I did a number of queries for this last book, and at one point I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go on my own, and
Yeah.
uh,
I think we talked
whatever
about it
hap
at one point.
yeah,
Yeah.
whatever happens, happens. And
Right.
I'm happy with it's a lot of work, but I'm happy the way I do things. And it
Hmm.
might not be perfect for everybody, but uh, and I might never be a guy who has 10 copies of my book on a shelf in a bookstore,
Hmm.
but I'm gonna do it my way, and
Yeah.
uh, things will work out.
Well, you're going to be proud of what you put out versus, I hate to say it this way because it comes across probably bad, but instead of like maybe selling out, of
Yeah,
saying, I'm going to just put something out because I think it's commercially viable
right.
or, it goes against my better judgment. But again, like you said, you're chasing something, you're
Yeah.
chasing. And that's the other try to reminder I tell my kids is, look, go be successful in whatever you can do in life, but the last thing you want to do is chase money. If
Mm-hmm.
your goal is to get into something because you want to make a lot of money, you're going to be unhappy. That money
Yep.
is not going to give you
Mm-hmm.
joy. And I know millionaires. I know people that are very wealthy, and I've had conversations with them, heart to heart, of like, does it actually make you happy? Guess what? No.
Right.
No. Doesn't make them
Yeah.
happy. They'll say that the stuff controls you if you're not careful. Now, for most
Exactly.
of them, what they end up getting the joy out of is achieving a level of wealth
Mm.
gives them freedom. So then you're not bound as much as the average person is to, you got to get in and clock in at 9 o'clock and you're going to work
Right.
at 5 o'clock and then you got this and that. So that financial freedom gives them, that those finances give them the freedom, but
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't give them the joy. You
Right.
got a lot of money in your bank account. Yeah, doesn't make
Right. And you bring to mind, there's a famous quarterback. I won't say who it is, but a quarterback who has been very successful and had won Super Bowls.
you. Hmm.
Um, Sort of made the comment after winning a number of Super Bowls, and asked the question like, "There's got to be more than this. Is this all there is?" This is a guy who's been super successful,
Yeah.
millionaire, you know, how many times over, and
Hmm.
yet still had that emptiness
Right.
because what was he chasing? I'm not sure. But
Yeah.
you can't be chasing the money or success or whatever. You just gotta there's gotta be more to whatever it is in life, whether it's writing or whatever, there's gotta be something more
Yes.
that is driving you.
Yep.
Um and for many it's the relationships that you build along the way.
Hmm.
Um so yeah.
Yeah. I was going to add to that when it comes to that is even for writing books, like and I've mentioned this before, is and you did as well, worked so hard to get that first book out. And I remember, and I think about it, with some regularity, is I remember what it felt like to hold. It's a different cover, but it was the Body Man, but it's
Hmm.
cover. I still have it. I have all my books, even with different publisher. I still keep I kept two copies actually. I kept a hardcover and a paperback, and I bought both of them. I wasn't given those. I gave away all the ones they gave me. I don't want them. So I was like, I just want to buy the two that I buy on my own, and I kept
Yeah.
those. But I remember when I finally got to that point when Amazon delivered my book to me like a day after it was published, and I was holding that. Dude, I'll admit, I'll be man up to man, I cried. Not bawling, but I teared up, and I'm like, man.
Yeah.
And for about a month, every time I'd look at that book or pick it up, man, I felt this like, you set out to do this and you accomplished a goal.
Hmm.
And it gave me a lot of joy.
Yeah.
But I must say, that was actually oh my goodness, Donnie, I didn't even think about this till right now. That was 3 years ago today. Because my first book came out on November 11th, 2021, which was not for Veterans Day. I even reached out to some veterans like Tony Tata and a few other ones and said, hey, you think it's okay if I come out with a book on Veterans Day? And because the reason I was wanting to put it out was not because it
Hmm.
was Veterans Day, it was my maternal grandmother's birthday.
Hmm.
So she was born on November 11th, 1917, I think. She passed away in 2010. She was like
Hmm.
92, 93 when she passed away. But I wanted to put it out on that day to honor her. And so I, reached out to a few people, said, "Do you think?" And they were all like, "Yeah, you're not going to be out manipulating veterans to try to buy books or
Right.
anything like
Yeah.
that. So yeah, wow, I didn't even, man, I can't believe it. What time is it? 7:48 at night. I didn't even realize until right now. It was 3 years ago today, but
Wow.
that feeling was amazing. But
Yeah.
where I'm going with this is the feeling kind of faded. Actually, here, let me reach back because here's the original copy. This is the first one I ever bought and got to hold right there. Guess what? When I hold that book now, yeah, that's cool. I don't get emotional. I don't get like, oh, I achieved this level. It's just,
Yeah.
okay, I set to
Well,
something, I did it.
it's a
Like
stepping
anything
stone.
in life.
You want to do it again and you want to do it better.
That's you know exactly what I'm where I'm going with
Yeah.
this is it's like
Yeah.
anything in life. First time things, your first kid, not your second kid doesn't matter because I have two of those and I love both kids, but that newness of something does wear
Yeah.
off. And so
Yeah.
you do something a second time and you're like, wait, hold on. I didn't get as excited this time. What's happening? It makes you want to try to recreate that magic in a bottle, which honestly you're never going to recreate, but you'll get part of it. And that part of it is probably the thing that will keep you grasping to get it
Hmm.
again.
Yep.
So yeah,
Yeah.
all
And, like you described, like having that sense of accomplishment, it only proves that you're doing it for the right reason. You have skin in the game,
yeah,
not because you're chasing the money, but because you truly care about doing something that means a lot to you.
right.
Um, and yeah, you get that sense of satisfaction that you put the work in
Yep.
and you see some payoff, whether it's an actual physical book in your hand or,
Hmm.
a couple bucks here and there, but
Yeah.
or sort of to go a step further, meeting a lot of these great people
Hmm.
that you would never have, you know, met before in your life, but
Yeah.
because of this passion to write and get books out there, come across these great people with these great stories to tell.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I've been able to meet, so I texted several veterans this morning, veteran authors, and one of them that I hadn't talked to in months, if not longer, was Brad Taylor. So Brad Taylor and I went back and forth a couple texts. I hadn't talked to him, and him and Elaine, I think, were just down in, I think Argentina. They were doing
Yeah,
research for his next Pike book. But yeah, so
yeah,
people like that, Jack Carr and Tony Tata, and some, get to interact with some heavyweights in the business. And what you end up realizing is they're just regular people, most of
hmm,
them. And that's the other thing that I try to tell people is you got to remember very few people graduate high school or graduate college and boom, come out with a New York Times bestseller and that's their life the rest.
hmm.
No, it's normally someone like yourself, someone that's created a career. And this is something that they've always had a passion for, and maybe they've done on the side, and maybe that'll be their second major career. But it's normally something that it takes experience, it
Yeah,
takes
life experience,
knowledge.
exactly. Yep.
Yeah, you become a much better writer with more experience. And
Hmm.
we were talking earlier about, all the rejections and all that. Honestly, I should have been rejected in 15 and 16 when I first started writing because I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't a good writer.
Exactly. Yep.
Um, Now, if I queried some agents, I'd be a little more ticked if they didn't give me the time of day because I think I'm better. And I've also sold a bunch of books and I've gotten a lot of people to say they like the book. So it's like, maybe you could maybe you could listen this time, but probably not. If I haven't queried in 4 years, and I might again in a couple years, but I've got too
Yeah.
many other projects that I'm
Yeah.
putting out on my own.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, you know, uh, agents don't really want to pick up your fourth. They don't want to, get on
Nope.
the train at, the fourth stop along the way. They want
Right.
to start at the very beginning. So
Yes.
to query again, you got to come up with a whole nother series or another book. So
Right.
yeah, that's a lot of bandwidth and time to
Yep.
go through that process all over again.
I
Especially
have.
if you like some of these other series that you're writing,
Yeah.
like you don't want to. Maybe you're the same way, but I wouldn't want to abandon them just to
Correct.
go write some other series that on a hope that an agent might pick it up. So
So I have one. I have one I started about a year and a half ago, and it's about a third done. And I haven't touched it in over, no, it's been a year now since I've even looked at it. I just got a spot in it where I was comfortable where I was going, but I hadn't flushed out enough of it in my head. and I said put it away. And Adam Hamdy, who's a pretty well respected author in my mind at least, is one that I talked with a lot about this project. And he, I kind of explained the vision. Him and I talked early on, and he said if you can finish this and you can do it the way you're describing and what you've started, you'll probably get a big book deal for it. An agent, a thing, all that. But I knew I wasn't ready at the time. I didn't have it enough, and I said, I'll put it
Mhm.
aside even for a couple of years because it's not a timely thing. Like it's not Russia going into
Right.
Ukraine. It's actually more, it's a
Yeah.
Secret Service, but it's a different Secret Service type of a novel than The Body Man. Completely different concept. Um, but it's one that I think when the time's right, I'll dive back in and I'll finish it, and then I'll do that. I'll query for 6 months. But I tell you what, if the doors get slammed in my face and they go, nah, we're not interested, cool. Guess what I've created? Bruno Media Publishing. I've got everything in place to do my own novels, and possibly make as much, if not more, in some ways, depending on
Mhm.
the success it could achieve through the indie market. So it's all good.
Yeah. Yeah. The bottom line is readers just want books. They don't
Right.
care who the publisher is.
No.
Maybe there's this small percentage that do, but generally they just want good books. And then when they find an author they like, they'll just keep buying books from that
Yep.
author. So I mean, I'm speaking as a reader. That's what I do.
Right.
And I love it when I find new authors that, I've never read, based on some sort of recommendation or whatnot, or just maybe just stumbling across them.
Hmm.
Uh, the funny, I stumbled across Brad Taylor way back when his One Rough Man was out,
Hmm.
only because it was sitting on the shelf next to Brad Taylor or Brad Thor, and I just happened to pick it up and see the cover, and I see the
Hmm.
blurb from Brad Thor, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'll give him a shot. And
Hmm.
the rest is history. The dude's a killer author, and
Yeah.
but my point is the readers don't look at who the publisher is.
Hmm.
They find a story and an author that they love, and they just latch
Right.
on. And readers just want books that they love to read.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. There's even some in the last couple of years, I've interacted with obviously quite a lot of authors, and especially if I'm going to have them on the podcast, I'm like, okay, who they're published, just so I have some baseline to understand where they came from and all that. And
Right.
the vast majority of time it's like I don't know who this publishing and a lot of
Exactly.
times what it is it's an imprint of Simon and Schuster or
Right.
Random House, Penguin, whatever. So it's an imprint, but it's a smaller imprint. But
Right.
when I see the name that came up and I'm like, are they self-published? Oh no, it actually is under a big publisher. I wouldn't have known that.
Right. Yep.
So, talk to me about how you went from Reagan Rainey in your Warrior Spy series, which you wrote two books in that. You wrote Warrior Spy and
Hmm.
Artifacts of Conspiracy. And I must say, from a proud standpoint, I am the alias used by Reagan, I believe, in a hotel in Artifacts of Conspiracy. So you are the first person that ever gave me a cameo in a book. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure.
I've
My
told
pleasure.
people that. So it's even as a writer, and actually that was before I had been published. So at that point, that was the first time my name was tied into a book. And I'm like, this is so cool. This
Cool.
is this is
Yeah.
why and I give you credit because that's one of the reasons I love, and probably too many in some of these last couple books. So with Breach of Trust and I think Babylon Will Rise, I'm at about six and it's done. It's already like files even submitted. But I love giving people cameos
Hmm.
because I know what it feels like to see my name on a page, and I know that joy that that gives people. And
Hmm.
if I'm gonna write a character, if possible, why don't I use someone's name? If they're the really bad characters, I probably don't want to have like, Donnie J being some serial killer, that's out, doing
Yeah.
whatever horrific stuff. But for the less bad people.
Right. Unless it's somebody you want to put in that category.
Donnie, we
What's
don't want
the
to go
what's
there.
well what's the t-shirts or the mugs you always see that with writers like
Oh,
don't tick me off because I might put you in a book and kill you,
put
like
you in a
that
book.
type of
Yes,
thing.
exactly.
Um, but yeah, so yeah, I know for you know cameos, it's kind of cool. I and then maybe you're the same way. I spend a lot of like time thinking about not just characters, backgrounds and stuff, but their names.
Oh yeah.
Um, just by virtue of I want a name that not just is easy to pronounce, and sometimes maybe not so. Like I want it to be look a certain way or that type of thing, but
Right.
and I'm sure most authors have the same kind of thing. Like I don't want a name that's looks like another name two, three times throughout the book.
Correct.
So like I would say it helps readers keep people straight, especially if you have a lot of characters in the books.
Hmm.
Um, to not have names that sound alike and look alike and that type of thing. So especially now with the audiobooks.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I haven't I don't think I give anybody a cameo in this last one, but maybe I'll have to look to do that in the next Warrior Spy book that comes out.
Yeah, it's always a good. And I was going to tell you this. So this is so the my next one that comes out, Babylon will Rise. It was something I had written, just like Ransom Daughter in the Omega Group. I had written a lot of Omega Group stuff years ago, and so when I created the imprint, created everything, I said, "Is there anything that I've written that I don't have to reinvent the wheel? Do I have?" So I went
Right.
back and read a lot of my old stories. And those two in particular, which were not full-length novels at the time, were solid stories. And I said, "Well, I can expand on these, and I can."
Right.
And I loved getting back into it. Well, when I was going through Babylon Will Rise earlier this year, I get to like the third or fourth chapter, and this I'm bringing in a big female character to join up with the Omega Group guys. Um, yeah, her name is a character from Breach of Trust, one of the people I created in Breach of Trust, like the first name, not the whole name. But I'm like,
Right.
I can't use the same name. So I sat there for probably an hour, consternate. It just
Yeah.
totally frustrated. Like, what am I gonna name her? What am I gonna do? And I finally, and I like what I settled with, but it took a lot of time of I don't want to just randomly grab a name because there has to
Yeah.
be something behind it. And in that instance, I was wanting a name that when it's first mentioned to the guys, they said it's six guy, the mega group's made up of six guys. It's like half an ODA basically. And they're bringing in a seventh member. So I want them to be like,
Yeah.
who's this dude that's getting stuck with us? So the name that's mentioned is sounds like a male name. And so they even at the end of one of the chapters, they're like, well, when do we get to meet this guy? And all of a sudden,
Hmm.
here she stands up and she says, my name is such and such. I'm a member of the US Army. And the guys are all just like, whoa, whoa,
Yeah.
we didn't see that one coming. It's a chick.
Yeah.
So,
That's cool. Yeah.
yeah, it was one of those fun moments. But again, those are the things that when you're writing, it's like, man, if you can entertain yourself,
Hmm.
that is your first priority anytime you're
Yeah.
writing, is be proud of what you're doing and enjoy.
Yeah. And I'm not sure, maybe you have similar experiences, but there have been times where I'm writing and sort of, and maybe this comes across to the readers too, but like I'll like be writing a scene, and because you have that much mental effort put into the scene, and you're thinking maybe even behind um, behind the characters or that much into the scene, even though some parts might not make it to the book,
Right.
that I've kind of been moved with emotion, and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's those types of things that it's why you write.
Yeah.
It's why you want to try to convey that same kind of feeling to the reader
Right.
as best you can. And it's a weird thing uh that happens when you're writing a book and getting that much into a scene. Like I said, some parts might not even make it to the final draft, but
Hmm.
it's woven into the scene, and it's a special thing.
It is. Well, and I can see just because, I was fortunate to read your first two books and then get an early copy. You were kind enough to give me a copy of Murder by Half and see that you're growing as a writer. And that's where Babylon Will Rise, I 100% believed in it. But when I sent out the advanced copies in the last couple of weeks, which is really short time period, and I said, hey, if you can't read it, I get it. No worries. I've had five people within like a week and a half go through it, send me blurbs, write me a write up.
Hmm.
Really cool. Out of five comments were all phenomenal, but three of the five all said something that really made me smile. It made my day. This is your best work yet. And I believed in it.
And that's
My
all you can
brain
ask for,
might,
right?
what's that?
That's all you can ask for.
Absolutely,
That you're making
100%.
progress and you're getting better, and hopefully that's anything you do in life that you're committed to,
Right.
you're making progress, you're getting better. Um, Yeah, that's awesome.
And I'm back in my summer release now, at least mentally, because I'm working on that. And it's not an arrogance or a confidence thing, but it's the commitment of guess what? When whoever reads that next spring, I expect that they're going to say, "Okay, you got even better." That's my
Hmm.
goal.
Right.
I don't want to hit a spot where I'm putting something out just to put it out, which this year was a challenge. Putting two books out, I don't advise to someone with
Yeah.
kids, full-time job, likes to travel, likes to go to concerts. But it's my own decision to do that. And I
Right.
think I'm putting two out next year. That's the what I'm working towards. But I'll
Yeah.
probably then be like, okay, we're
Yeah.
good. One a
Well, I
year.
don't, and sort of this the two books a year thing. How many years did Brad Taylor do that? Because
Ooh, he did it for maybe 5 or 6 years,
it
7.
was like, you just kind of, and granted, traditionally published guy, but still, that's a lot of
Yeah,
coming up with a story, and you know, that's even if you're just writing and sending it off, you can't just send off your first draft and
no,
be like you still want to like put the thought in and polish it as best you can, but
right.
like that's a feat.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
and I'll say this year, both of the ones that came out this year, well, Babylon Rise will be out in a couple weeks. They were written prior to the year. So they were in some form close to done, or at least Babylon Rise wasn't. That took a lot more work to fix, to add to. I added and really did a lot of work with that one. The two that I'm planning for next year, one of them's already done and it's going to need some work. The other one's a third done. So that's where it's like, can I finish the second, the two-thirds, and then get the other one fixed? And that's the goal. I think I can, but it's just, again, it's a discipline. It's,
mhm.
you're not watching 5 football games a week, and you're just being very disciplined with,
Yep.
what you got to do. Because what's important, what matters. I'm not going
Right.
to sacrifice time with my kids. I'm not going to sacrifice the family stuff. I can't sacrifice my 9 to 5 job because, uh, spoiler alert, there is no Bugatti in my driveway.
Hmm.
I have to have a 9 to 5 full-time,
Yep.
good paying
Something's got to
job
pay the bills. Yeah.
to
Yep.
survive.
Yep.
So, the writing fits in where I can fit it in. And so I cut out television and I cut out other things that I would maybe want to do, but to me, they're not as important as the books and putting out good quality books. So again, it's all what you value and what's important to you. So, well, speaking of value and what's important to you, talk to us about Nathan Press and Murder by Half. How did that come about? Tell us a little bit about the stories about, and so people can at the end of the interview, go on Amazon and everywhere else and get a copy.
Yeah. So in the Reagan Rainey the Warrior Spy series, Reagan Rainey was a guy that's like straight and narrow. He's sort of been that straight and narrow guy all his life.
Hmm.
Had a really great family. Um, so there wasn't too much baggage in his past. With Nathan Press, the detective in my latest book here, Murder by Half, you can see it.
There you go. Hold it up. Be proud.
Uh, so I wanted a guy that I wanted him to have a little baggage.
Yeah,
And I'm this way with all my characters, maybe not to the extent with some of the minor characters, but for me, I have to know like all of their background, like their
I remember
history,
us
their
talking
ins and
about that years
outs.
ago. Yeah.
Like I even have like cops love forms, right? So
Hmm.
I even made up my own little form to cover all those little traits of a character, his
Yeah.
his background, his education, even if they might not ever get into the book, but
Wow.
just for my own satisfaction, it helps me kind of like know who that person is.
Sure. Absolutely.
Um, but anyway, Nathan Press is a guy that's like he's got some baggage, he's got some things in his life that have sort of made him a little bit more cynical, and that's even before becoming a cop.
Hmm.
Um, so he uh, he grew up in West Virginia, blue collar background. His mom's family is wealthy, but they're sort of estranged from Nathan's mom and dad.
Okay.
Um, but Nathan has some unique he's not like this super genius guy, but he's got some abilities that led him to be able to go to an Ivy League school. He
Hmm.
ends up going up to Brown, where uh, some of his mother's family is living in Providence, in the Providence area.
Hmm.
So he goes to Brown, um, gets a master's degree in applied mathematics, and then whether it's trying to figure out life at that point, what he wants to do with that, whether he even wants to make math the rest of his life, or make math into a career the rest of his life, he decides to join the police force and
Hmm.
sort of so by this time he likes the action, he likes puzzles, that type of thing. I'll just do this for a little bit and see what happens. Well, he ends up liking the job and stays with it.
Hmm.
So where the story starts out, he's a detective sergeant. He's been there like 10 or so years, 10.5 years or so. Um, he has an attorney friend who's a prominent attorney. Um, he sort of gives him this mysterious letter and he
Hmm.
wants to meet, and then he doesn't show. So then the story starts to be where I don't want to ruin the story too much, but the attorney doesn't show up
Hmm.
because he's dead. And so he's found in the city limits, which makes it the domain of Providence PD.
Right.
And so Nathan Press then becomes the primary investigator, and him and his squad then investigate the crime, and they go from there. So that's kind of like the thumbnail sketch of the book without giving any spoilers
Yeah,
away.
don't give too many spoilers away.
Yeah,
And I know the answer to this, but for those that are listening, so can we expect a series here, a sequel coming up?
absolutely. That was the whole intent when I started out. Um, so my goal is to have, hopefully it'll work out, but it'll be to have the second book in the series um, by year's end. Hopefully fall, but
Okay.
at the latest year's end next year.
Okay.
So in the meantime, sort of along the same lines as you were talking about, I have Warrior Spy number three.
Hmm.
I had written that with the intent of publishing that, self-publishing that, and then I kind of got the idea from one of my author buddies to if I wanted to land an agent, create a new series. So I had
Hmm.
always along the line thought I wanted to write like a detective, a police detective
Yeah.
character, and have a series all his own. So I figured I'll start that.
Hmm.
I'll start a new series and hopefully land an agent. But in the meantime, I had Warrior Spy 3 sitting on the shelf.
Right.
Um, Still needed to be polished and all that type of thing, but so that's kind of where I'm at, and hopefully here beginning of the year sometime, probably more so in the spring, late.
So you could possibly have two out next year.
If all goes well,
Look at
yes,
that.
definitely Warrior Spy 3.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, but yeah, like you said, and I had said before, it's a lot of work
it is.
to the writing aside, but then all the other things associated with getting the book out, and
Right.
yeah, so but that's my plan, is to get Warriors by 3 out, and uh hopefully readers will agree with me, and that I think it's Reagan Rainey at his best yet. So
Hmm.
he's got some new friends along the way this time. Um he's It's a little different of a story, and but maybe we can talk about that sometime down the road,
Yeah.
back on the podcast. But
Yeah, we'll come back on and talk about it. 100%.
yeah, it's kind of and I'm sure I'm not the only author out there who has done this, but when you write something, especially if it sits a little bit, things happen in real life that sort of cause you to have to go back and tweak some things or
Yep.
change some things. So that was very much the case with Warriors by 3. So I mean, I think it will be for the better. It'll make the story, you know, all the more interesting.
Yeah.
But but yeah, there's I'm looking forward to Warriors by 3 coming out and seeing
Hmm.
what people think about it. In addition to hearing what people like about Murder by Half.
Well, it's kind of like having another kid. That
It
you're,
is.
it really is. And I say this, and people will probably get sick of me saying this in the podcast because I end up saying it with a lot of the guests. But I think you'd agree with me on this. Is as an author, there's a little piece, a little. I think it's a little piece of our soul is left behind
Mhm.
in every book we write. And
Yeah.
so I frequently tell people that is like, man, one day my time. I just turned 48 a couple days ago, which I'm ignoring. I'm ignoring that number. I'm still 16 in my head, and I probably act like it way too often. Um, but at some point, the ride's going to come to a stop. Hopefully, it's a long time away, but I don't know. It could be tonight. I mean, just life is life. You don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Um, if people want to know who I was, or my kids, or my grandkids, they're going to be able to pick up one of my books as long as,
Mhm.
as long as there's still paper copies and digital copies out there. They'll be able to read what, granddad or uncle or great granddad or whatever wrote. And, um, that's a pretty powerful thing to leave some behind. And I try
Mhm.
to I put plenty of junk in my books as well. I'll fully admit funny stories, inappropriate things. I don't write Christian fiction, but I put truths in there as well. And I want people to pick up like Babylon Will Rise had a scene in there where the people are talking about their three F's, which is faith, family, and freedom. And that started a conversation with this new character of like, you guys, faith, really? And the characters were able to talk a little bit about what their faith was different. And they didn't all believe the exact same thing. But I was able to put some morsels out there, and maybe someone reads that and goes, I never thought about it that
Yep.
way. And not
Causes people to think.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not, I'm not trying to be preachy with anything I write, but man, I don't want people to pick up my book and be like, I have read 100 books just like this. The guy
Yeah.
gets the girl, the bad guy is always the terrorist person or this and that.
Yeah.
No, I want to write something that because I'll be honest and I'll admit this on a podcast. I kind of am getting sick of stuff that's always like a formula, like the publishing
Mm.
industry likes to push out. I don't read a lot of that stuff anymore. I want
I'm
to,
with you.
and I'm not saying I never write anything that's predictable or anything, but I'm trying my best to do things different each time
Right.
because I'm trying to surprise myself, and that's what I'll keep doing. That's my goal.
Yeah. Well, I
So,
think when you said each book has a part of your soul in it, I would say if it doesn't, you're not doing it right. Um,
100%
I would say readers, they want that, at least I can speak for myself as a reader.
as a reader, yeah.
I want that emotional connection to a book. Um, I'm sure you're the same way. You have a ton of books that are on your to be read pile,
Yep.
or shelves in my case. Um, so when I pick up a book, if I don't like it in the first chapter, I got too many other books to read. Um,
Yep.
so that's kind of like, but like I said earlier, like when you find an author that you like,
Yeah.
you know that you can go to that author anytime and you're going to have a great reading experience.
Yep.
So that's kind of my thought process with hopefully my books is I want that same kind of feeling.
Hmm.
Um, in the books that I write, I want readers to have that same kind of feeling that they're going to connect with it. They'll just keep coming back for more. The story might be different, or characters might be different here or there, but they know that they're going to get that same enjoyable reading experience that might make them think, might excite them, might scare them, might um, cause them just to keep coming back for more. I mean,
Right.
and that's the
Exactly.
whole idea. So like you said, like if your soul's not in the books you write, then you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Um,
Beautifully said.
yeah.
I agree. Well, speaking of making you think in your soul, we'll end with the same question I ask everybody. It's a thinking question in a way, I guess. But I think you'd agree with me that life's like a book. We have a first page, we have a last page. It's a blessing, I think, that we don't know how many pages are in between those bookends. But as a writer, you have the ability to write your last page. What would you like that last page to say?
Um, I would like it to say that I'm a good example of my faith, um, as a believer in Jesus Christ. I would like it to say that I was a good husband and a good dad.
Mhm.
Um, those are the biggest things that I want people to take away, in the book of my life. So, um, And then as as the acknowledgement section in my books that I write, I would, hope it to be evident that I'm thankful for all the people that have contributed to my life.
Hmm.
My parents who have sacrificed a lot. Um, my mom's no longer with us, but and she was a big influence in my life.
She was a big
Uh,
supporter. I remember our conversations over the years. Yeah.
yep, yep.
Yep.
So I remember, it's something that you remember um, certain things from your parents as you become an adult and go
Hmm.
into adulthood. But I remember one thing that she would always say is, "You can do anything you set your mind to." And where my mom was unique is she meant it.
Hmm.
It wasn't just something that she
Wasn't
said
a
because,
platitude,
yeah.
just yeah.
So, and she, that was one thing that, and I can still hear her saying, "Read your Bible." I can still hear her saying, like, always put Christ first, those types of things. But my point is, I would hope that at the end of my book, um, people would know that I appreciated them.
Hmm.
I'm thankful for them. Um, it's just amazing the special people that come into your lives
Yeah.
throughout your life that maybe you take for granted sometimes and don't understand the significance of them in your life in the moment. But
Hmm.
5, 10 years down the road, or maybe more, you realize what they've done for you and how it's made you the person you are.
Right. Well, and I think like with your, with what you've gone through with loss with your mom, I think as you get older and as you start to see people important to you pass on, that's when that, I guess you could say maturity, or that's when that wisdom I think kicks in more that you do start realizing, not that the ride might be over quickly, it might not be, but you start realizing how important, like, man, stuff that you probably gave your kids grief for years ago, man,
Mhm.
you would die to have it back with them. Like, I, I took, I think I put obviously on social media. I took my son wasn't around. He wasn't there. He was staying with a friend. But so I took my daughter and my nephew, a silly thing in a way, but to see Back to the Future. They were showing it on the movie theater down, about 30 minutes away at an actual theater. I'd never
Hmm.
seen that I can recall seeing the original, which is my favorite movie.
Right.
And, I've seen that movie probably 100 times in my life since I was, what, 9 or 10 when it came out, however old I was. Saw it pretty quickly. Probably too young to see that, but it's PG. I was like, holy cow, there's a lot of swear words in this. I forgot the 80s had a lot of swear words in all the PG movies. But I bring that up to say, I soaked in that moment of sitting there. I
Mhm.
kept looking over at my daughter who's watching the movie and having popcorn. I kept smiling at her, grabbing her leg and being like, "Are you enjoying it? Yeah, this is fun." And I was just like, man, those are the moments that, you want to try to enjoy. And with you not having your mom, I'm fortunate I have my mom. My mom, 71. I'm 2 weeks from today, as we're talking, I will be with my mom. Actually, at this time of night, we'll be at Les Mis in London at the West End. Is
Hmm.
the first play I ever saw, first Broadway style play was in 1996 when I went on a school trip to Europe. And all the girls wanted to go see a play. I was like, whatever, plays are stupid. What are we gonna go see? We're gonna see this thing called Les Miserables. I'm like, whatever, sounds dumb. I walked out of that play with tears in my eyes. And so with taking my mom on this trip, I said to Mom, we're going to go see Les Mis. I saw it 28 years ago in London. It's still playing at this. I don't know if it's the same theater, but it's still playing there. So
Mhm.
yeah, 2 weeks from right now, I'll be with my mom in London watching Les Mis, and then we're going to go to Scotland for a day and a half, and then we're going to go to Dublin for 3 days. I'm gonna savor that moment with her, and there's a little part of my brain though that's like you don't know how long
Mhm.
you have with her. So
Yeah.
do this trip, have these experiences, tell mom you love her, and
Yep.
that equates for anyone in our family members. You can't live life always thinking it's going to end immediately because that would
Right.
drive you crazy. But you do need to have those reminders of saying, man, maybe it's important to call someone you haven't talked to in a while. Maybe it's important to, you know give your kids a little less grief when they do something stupid.
Mhm.
Be a parent and parent
Yep.
them, but maybe give them a hug at the end and just remind them, hey, you're dumb right now, but I love you. Don't be
Right.
dumb next time.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
yeah. Well, thank you for coming on. I appreciate your friendship
Hmm.
over the years. You've been a source of encouragement to me in this business that is ridiculous most of the time, but
Mhm.
it's super rewarding because we both have books behind us that we've gotten to pen, which is a blessing. So where should our listeners and people that are watching this, where should they go to pick up The Warrior Spy, Artifacts of Conspiracy, and now Murder by Half?
So I would say the best place is just my website,
Okay,
and then you can jump off from there. But DonnyJBooks.com, DonyJay books.com.
there we go.
Sign up for my email newsletter. I'm not sure if you saw it on my socials here today, but I intend to release a free Nathan Press short story in January,
Hmm.
but only to my email news subscribers. So our newsletter subscribers. So yeah, just make sure you're signed up. And there's a particular, and just sort of like the to do a brief sketch on that, is there's a particular thing that's referenced in Murder by Half. It's sort of like at the very beginning,
Hmm.
but that's not really like going in. I don't really go into detail in that as far as what specifically happened. Um, so the short story will sort of explain that. So
Okay,
that's kind of like the point of the short story. So
love
it's
it.
called Killers Beware. Uh, so yeah, hopefully readers will enjoy that.
Sounds great. Donnie, thank you for coming on. I appreciate you.
Sure, I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely.